Sid here from my good friends at Inhala.com. Let's talk about serious business. Sleep apnea. Whether you've been diagnosed with it or afraid you have it, I've got the solution. Inhala is here to give you your life back by giving you your breath back. They make it easy to get help for sleep apnea because living without restful sleep is simply no way to live. Inhala gives you a custom-fitted oral appliance that opens your airway so you naturally breathe the way nature intended. The best part is they offer virtual consultations and in-home sleep testing. No overnight stays at a sleep center. Plus, Inhala has all the doctors that you'll need. Appointments are virtual, and it's all covered by your private medical insurance. Inhala does it all, from diagnosis to the delivery. Don't suffer from another sleepless night or daytime fatigue. Visit Inhala.com or call 844-INHALA-1. That's 844-INHALA and the number 1. Call now. 844-INHALA-1. That's 844-INHALA-1.
ABC January 8th. Tim Allen and Kat Dennings star in the new family comedy Shifting Gears.
Dad, I'm broke and I need a place to stay until I figure out what the rest of my life looks like.
So, a couple of days.
When his daughter moves back in.
The last time you walked out that door, you looked back at me and gave me a double bird.
I was 18. The double bird was how I ended all our conversations.
The wheels come off.
Can we try to talk to each other like rational adults?
Have you watched the news lately? That's not a thing anymore.
Series premiere Wednesday, January 8th on ABC and stream on Hulu.
Does Dr. Michalos have a remedy for all of those who are waking up right now with like a migraine splitting headache from a hangover, Dr. Michalos?
Have a big, tall glass of water, and if you have access to some electrolytes, like a good, big, tall glass of Gatorade and a nice, strong cup of coffee, and just get super hydrated so you can pee out all that alcohol out of your system and recover and rest and not try to overexert yourself. That's the good old-fashioned best remedy. Some people even do it to an extreme, and they have IV services that come to your house, and they get an entire bag of something called Myers cocktail, which is basically IV fluid plus all vitamins and minerals, because people who drink a lot of alcohol tend to have low B12 levels, and because alcohol interferes with the absorption of many vitamins, and that's why many alcoholics, when they go for their annual physical, they find that they're deficient in many vitamins. So that's some of the basic remedies, but hydration is basically what they do when you go to the ER. When they bring in people with alcoholism, they put an IV in them to try to dilute the poison of alcohol in the bloodstream and then get them to urinate it out as fast as possible.
All right. Well, Dr. Michalos, you've certainly given them the remedies. Now, this is the day of resolutions for the new year, and it generally centers around diet, health, exercise, but most of the resolutions are broken quickly. What's an easier resolution that would be less likely for somebody to break?
Get an annual physical and schedule it right away for the new year, and start the new year knowing where you stand, getting all your biomarkers checked, knowing where your complete blood count, your electrolytes, if you're a man, your PSA test, catch things early. If you're a woman, get your pap smear test, your mammogram. If you're over 50, schedule your colonoscopy and do all the preventive things in the beginning of the year. There's even a new blood test called the Galleri test where you can check for 50 cancers before they even show up on an MRI. Just do a blood test. And there are things that you can do to start the new year. You get a cardiogram so you know where your heart is, checking things like your thyroid profile. And those are some of the things you start off the new year so you know where you are. Checking our blood sugar. There's many undiagnosed diabetics in the United States with all the high fructose corn syrup and all the other things that we have in our diet and the processed food. So knowing where you stand, making changes, getting, as you spoke of earlier with Ernie, the Mediterranean diet, lots of fresh fish, fruits, olive oil, and doing the best you can to avoid the food coloring and dyes. And we're going to be hearing a lot more about that. I think after January 20th, we're going to be hearing more about our food safety, our supply chains, and those are some of the
RFK, when does Robert Kennedy, I guess he has to be confirmed before he takes over.
Yeah, I think when he confirmed. But whatever happens, I think that the fact that the conversation has been started, why in the EU they don't have ketchup that has high fructose corn syrup, And in the United States, it's loaded with high fructose corn syrup, which we know is associated with obesity. And why do they don't allow genetically modified seeds? And here we have it all the time. And the genetically modified corn is then fed to the cows and to the animals and to the farm salmon.
And it's fed to the farm-raised salmon, which ends up giving you, is that one of the reasons some of them give you arsenic?
Well, because they're sitting there in these crowded fish tanks and swimming in each other's poops, and that's why they also have to throw in antibiotics in there. So then we're ingesting the antibiotics, and then those affect the good bacteria in our gut microbiome. So it's a cycle, but we're going to be hearing so much more about it, and I think as a country we're going to save trillions of dollars if we can start putting in, good premium high-test fuel in our bodies instead of some of this stuff that's been sold to us in this bill of goods and all these colorings that make things marketable and attractive, but they're doing damage, and our ancestors weren't eating any of these things. So getting back to like the people in Sicily who have longevity in the blue zones, and the people of Icaria, Greece, and Loma Linda, California, and these other places where they're eating good, healthy food, and that's very important. And stay hydrated, because a lot of people have heart attacks and strokes during the winter. We're going to have a cold spell next week. When you are dehydrated and you're out there shoveling snow, your blood pressure goes up. Your blood runs thicker, like half and half. When you're well hydrated and you drink a lot of water, your blood runs thin, like skim milk, and you're less likely to get a heart attack. That's why when people go to the ER and they just put an IV in and they say, I feel better, but there's no medicine in it, just a simple fluid hydration, filling up your veins, your arteries, and thinning out your blood just with good old-fashioned fluids helps you feel better. So hydration is critical as we age and we get older. So those are some of the tips to try to stay healthy and eat healthy, and keep listening to WABC as we give more health tips and some of the new advances. We're going to be seeing cancer vaccines. We're going to be seeing immune therapy, where when they biopsy your tumor, they're going to make custom medicines against your tumor by analyzing the surface proteins on your tumor, and then making vaccines and medicines that will specifically attack your own personal tumor. And that's what we're seeing. Some of these great new immune therapies that are boosting the immune system that saved Jimmy Carter when he got diagnosed with metastatic disease at 92, and he went on to live, another good quality of life, another 5-6 years before his last 2 years on hospice. But he got to spend time with his family and continue doing whatever he was doing. And many other Americans now, with President Trump's law of right to try, many people were able to find out if a clinical trial, for example, was going well for a certain cancer, you had the right to try and apply to get that medicine before it went through the entire FDA process. And that's another thing that's given great hope to those without any hope. And we're going to probably see more of that and some of the deregulation in access to medications.
Dr. Michalos, RFK Jr., if he does get confirmed by the Senate, wants to eliminate all advertising of pharmaceutical products by Big Pharma on TV and cable. They spend millions of dollars. I watch them, as many Americans do, and they're always smiley faces, and in the last 30 seconds they tell you every catastrophic thing that can happen to you for taking those medicines, those drugs. Is he right about that?
Bigger problem. Absolutely. There's a bigger problem with that, Curtis. What happens is the patients are coming to the office and saying, I want this medicine because I saw it on TV. And then the doctor has to sit there and explain to them that this is just something new. There's no long-term track record. So it makes the doctor's job much more difficult, especially now that doctors have very limited time. And if they don't see a certain number of patients, because most of them work for some entity, will get fired. And then many people come in because they use Dr. Google, and the advertisements are popping up left and right. And Dr. Google tells them, you need to take this medicine for this rash. But the doctor says, well, not exactly, and you have to sit there and explain. So it's causing a lot of confusion. So that's not the place trying to teach medicine through a commercial and some theatrics and trying to tell people what to do. again, I support, I think U.S. pharmaceutical companies are very important. The research and development they spend and they put into it is very important. But there are better ways to do it, because what happened under President Obama, they limited and restricted the reps that used to come in and give you the peer-reviewed literature and try to explain it to you, to the doctor, not to the patient. So what they did to bypass that Obama ruling, they went directly to the patient through advertising, because they don't allow it to happen directly to the doctors anymore. They said it was incentivizing doctors to want to do these things, but no doctor is really going to change the way they prescribe based on some pharmaceutical rep telling them that something's better than the other. People do their own due diligence and read the papers, read the literature. So that was what happened. That change, that paradigm change when they started going directly to the consumer, just confused things. And I think that's going to be a wonderful thing. And it also influences, because if you're an advertiser on a station and that's your advertiser, you're never going to say anything bad about that drug or make any negative comments. So there's conflicts of interest. And that's why a lot of big corporations buy ad space on the mainstream media, because it's as Curtis always says, it's their protection. So they do that, and then who's going to write a negative story?
Dr.
Yes.
Peter, that's why we gave you the title "Live Long and Prosper," as Spock did on Star Trek, because I believe with your advice and eating the right foods and doing the right things, our listeners could live 10 years longer. And I want our listeners to live 10 years longer. And Dr. Peter,
absolutely.
thank you for everything you do. Thank you for all your advice, and all our listeners, thank you too.
Thank you, John and Curtis, and always consult with your physician first before you start any new diet and program, and please get your annual physicals and testing for all cancer screenings.
Thank you.